Hello and welcome to my studio. Today I'll be using this Frisk watercolour paper. It's A3 size and it's £90, 190 GSM, and I've cut a piece that's 9 inches square, and I'm going to start by just gessoing it with white gesso. And I want a nice textured layer of gesso down here. So we're continuing with our August prompt of Artist Inspired in the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group. Now if you're in the Facebook group and you feel that this whole Artist Inspired prompt is not for you, then please do remember that you're welcome to do any of the other prompts that we've done throughout this year or indeed in previous years, so you're very welcome to do those. Now that my paper is gessoed, is dry and has a nice texture to it, I'm going to stick it down to a piece of cardboard with some 1 inch wide masking tape. And this week I am going to do a piece inspired by Van Gogh, or you might refer to him as Van Gogh. My painting is inspired by one of Van Gogh's paintings that no longer exists because it was destroyed by fire in 1945. I'll put a link in the description box below to an article about how a photograph was found of the painting. It's a sunflowers painting, and I took this image in my garden just this morning before I started to film. So based on my own image, I did a very quick sketch here, didn't put any detail into it. I was initially going to do it in my journal there, but I decided instead to put it on this piece of paper. So I'm just going to do a very quick sketch here. I'm keeping the sketch very loose and it's based more on my sunflower image rather than the painting. But when it comes to actually doing the colours, I will base that more on Van Gogh's colours, albeit it's not his full painting. I'm going to use my gel plate as a palette, and I'm going to start with some ultramarine blue and some white just to do the very centre dot, because he coloured that in this kind of light blue colour. I'm now going to take some burnt umber, add a little bit of the white to it, and also just a little bit of the ultramarine blue, and that's going to go as that kind of main part of the flower. Just dabbing it down really, very kind of short strokes, and this really at this stage is just the first layer. For the petals I'm going to use this Cad Yellow Deep Hue and also this Naples Yellow. I'll mix them but not fully because I like little bits of each colour coming through in the brush strokes. And now I'll put down the first layer onto the petals. I'm not being too precise here. It doesn't matter that I've not got the points of the petals in. I'm not right up to the centre of the flower yet, but that will come out more as I add more layers to it. I wanted the brush strokes to be quite loose and free, and now I'm just going around that central part. So I'm using the Van Gogh image for reference and now adding little bits of yellow to the centre of the flower. As well as the colours, I'm trying to capture the movement from his piece, and it was said that he brought out emotions, etc., through the use of colour and movement in his work. So I add a bit, I blend a bit, and then add some more. And again, I'll come back to the centre bit for a couple more times as my process continues. I now go back in with the yellow, just starting to tidy up a little bit some of those petals. I could have left as is. When you look at Van Gogh's sunflowers, they're often quite raggedy petals, but I just wanted to tidy them a little bit, and it also thickens up the paint and gives it another layer at this stage. I'm now taking the kind of yellow mix and I've added in some of the burnt umber and just starting to add a bit more detail, a bit more texture to the centre part of the flower. And you'll see there, bringing it out a little bit onto the actual petals, because again, when I look at the Van Gogh reference, these two kind of merged together. They were not quite in the same stark contrast that I had here. And I start to blend this out with my fingers. After going right round it, I also did something similar with that little bit of blue in the middle. I then dried it thoroughly. I'm now going to start to work on the background, and I take that same ultramarine blue and I do a first layer with it, and then for the second layer I will start to work in some black just to darken it a bit. I'm keeping it very painterly and letting the brush strokes show through. And I now start to add my second layer, which is the mix of the ultramarine and the black. Once that's done, I've now added a little drop of white to the mix and just applying that again in a very painterly fashion, not across the entirety of the background, but just here and there. And I'm feeling here that the boldness of the yellow and the blue is very much in the Van Gogh style and Fauvist in its approach. For the leaves, I'm going to use some sap green, and I'm going to get a slightly darker shade by adding Payne's grey rather than using black on this occasion. I'll mix some white in for a second layer on the leaves, and I will also add in some little bits of the yellow, because again I've picked that up from Van Gogh's painting, that he had included some tiny bits of the yellow from the petals. So can I just say a big thank you at this point to everyone that's been hitting the thumbs up, that's been leaving comments, and indeed to new subscribers over the past few weeks for this series of inspired by videos, but indeed also for other videos. It's very much appreciated. I'm still dreadfully behind in replying to comments, but I do really hope to get caught up at some point soon. So here I am now, just taking the yellow mix with some of the burnt umber and white added to it, and just starting to add a little bit of shading, just to start to separate out some of the petals. So just starting to work on some of the finer points of detail. Now you will see that in a little while I will start to add some little orange bits to the petals and indeed to the leaves. And I'll say a bit more about why I think that was important to this particular painting towards the end. But meantime, I'm just going to leave you for a few minutes while I work on this. So just about time to remove the masking tape, and what is striking about this lost Van Gogh painting is what he did with that white border. He painted it orange, and Martin Bailey, who is a Van Gogh specialist, says that he went back to his letters and saw that Van Gogh had said that this was the way that he wanted his paintings to be seen, because Van Gogh loved complementary colours, so the blue and the orange together. And again, I think a very Fauvist approach to use those complementary colours in that way. And you know, as I was working my way through my inspiration piece based on his sunflowers, based on this lost painting, I realised that those little touches of orange that he put onto the petals and the leaves were in fact so that there was a bit of balance in the painting. If the painting had just simply been with the orange border, it might have looked a little bit odd. The orange had to be brought in to the main part of the piece as well. So I've mixed up here some cad yellow, some cad red, and I actually have some cad orange that I also add to the mix here. So it's very bright. It's typically Fauvist, I would say, in its approach. And, you know, in some ways I thought, do I really want to do this? But I did, because I wanted to kind of pay homage to that piece, I guess. And it really is bold and striking. It shows up a little bit red on camera here, but it is a very deep orange. I do go over with a second coat, again pulling out some of the individual colours that made that up, because when I looked at his piece it didn't look to be totally solid. And of course I played about a little bit more just with some of the detail. Really enjoy doing that in any piece, just those little bits of shading, etc. Here I'm just going back in with a very small brush, just touching up where there's still some little white bits, so going in with the blues, in some case with the yellow and the petals, just to get rid of those little white bits. So Nina and Almut will of course have a video this week, and it'll be interesting to see what they've come up with. I'm pleased with how this turned out. It's very textured, and I'm really pleased I decided to do this. I nearly didn't, but in the end I went for it, so I do hope you've enjoyed it. So all links listed below, and I'll also include a list of the products that I used today. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.